Psych. I couldn't resist. I thought that I would put together some readings for eclipse season. It's coming up. We're sort of in the motion towards it. And thinking about the first eclipse season of this year, that was back in March, and that was when I had Bell's palsy, when I was incapacitated, when half of my face was paralyzed and I couldn't sort of see or talk. So don't freak out. I'm not reckoning that this is some sort of omen that anything like that's going to happen to you or to me again. It was just irresistible when looking at the dates and looking at the patterns from March and juxtaposing them to now. It's a very different feeling, very different feeling indeed. If we look back to March the 14th of this year, there was a lunar eclipse in Virgo. So we missed out on an eclipse in Pisces at that time because the sun and the moon were far enough away from the lunar nodes, the dragon's head and tail. So the Pisces lunation, the Pisces new moon, missed out on being eclipsed. However, the Virgo full moon was, and that was on the 13th of March, the 14th of March, I should say. The day that I got the palsy, Bell's palsy, was the 13th of March. Now, that lunation was conjunct Saturn. So if we think about the difference from then to now, a lunar eclipse conjoined with Saturn sounds pretty terrifying, and it sounds like a real sort of release of faculty. And it feels like a real enforced silencing, wouldn't you say? You have to laugh about it. At least I think that you should. But that's different now. That's not happening at this during this time. The other thing to think about is that there was the lunar eclipse in Virgo, and then I think in the fortnight between then and then the final solar eclipse in Pisces for this round, Mercury stationed retrograde, and that happened in Aries. So by the time we got to the solar eclipse in Aries, Mercury was retrograde. So there's something that is very different to what's about to happen. Now, I think that I've probably got enough info here to sew all of these lunations together, so there might be only one video from me this time around, although we'll see. Who knows how, inspired I feel. But what's interesting about this season, Virgo season of 2025, is that there's going to be 3 lunations in this cycle. So there's going to be a solar eclipse in Virgo, a lunar eclipse in Pisces, but also a new moon in Virgo, and that starts everything off. When the sun ticks over from Leo into Virgo, beginning Virgo season, the moon has caught up, and instantaneously at 0 degrees of Virgo, they will form a new moon. And because it's farther enough away from the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, the lunar nodes, it won't be eclipsed. So it almost feels like there's something of a kind of reprieve, something of like wish to be made, and then sort of choppier weather to put up with. But if we make the right wish at the new moon in Virgo, I reckon it might weather us through and see us through. Now, because we're dealing with Virgo energy, Virgo feelings, we look to the planet Mercury to sort of guide us along and see how these lunations might be informed, because the sun is going to be in, Virgo for its season. Mercury is on its way to Virgo. as it stands, Mercury stationed direct on the 11th of August, so last week before this first lunation, and then it's moving into Virgo. So by the lunar eclipse in Pisces, Mercury will have entered into Virgo, and then will form a cazimi as well, which means it will be meeting up with the sun and becoming rebirthed. Now, all of that jargon is to say is when it comes to our words and our ideas, we're in for some clarity here. We're in for some really direct thoughts, direct intentions, and direct action, direct say-so. Leo wants us to be really forthright with our words when Mercury is present. Of course, for the last 3 weeks or so, Mercury has been retrograde in Leo, so that's made us all feel gagged. It's made us all feel incapacitated when it comes to communication, overwhelmed when it comes to communication, not being able to find the words, not being able to find the right thing to say. That's changing. And when we look at the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, I got to say, I had Bell's palsy the last time that the eclipses occurred in Virgo and in Pisces, but I don't anymore. And since then to now, I've been learning a bunch of different streams and pathways and portals have been opening for me in terms of my astrological education, as far as what it is that I do and know and how I can apply it to my own chart, my own destiny, but also to the charts of other people. I've been thinking and doing tests and surmising. I'm not ready yet at all, but soon I think that I'm going to be wanting to further my education as far as the evolutionary astrology ideas are concerned. Now that sounds pretty weird because I've been of the direct mind of using and reading the planets in a certain framework, in a certain system. Evolutionary astrology has got nothing to do with evolutionary psychology, I might add as well. But what has been really meaningful to me during this period of great upheaval, during this time of immense sorrow and immense grief, there's been such beacons of hope and possibility when studying own patterns of behavior and unconscious leanings, unconscious thought forms, habits, things like that, and then layering on a further definition as to where some of this coding has come from. And the evolutionary astrology idea has it that the dragon's head and the dragon's tail might have clues or might have notions, ideas, open conversations about the idea of past lives and past learnings, past experiences that now inform unconsciously our impulses today. It's a really broad subject. It's a really contemporary form of astrology. It's going to take a lot more conversation and a lot more education on my part before I feel confident enough even approaching it. But personally, there has been things and ways of reaction that I've grappled with for a lot of my life, that through that lens, there's possibility to understand and there's strategies to enforce. I think that for a lot of my astrological chats with you folks, I've been talking about the idea of the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, Rahu and Ketu, as the Vedics say, as being a point of compulsion and a point of shedding. Things that fall away and things that you can't get enough of. Now that could be true, and in fact a lot of astrologers, the Hellenistic astrologers in particular, work with the nodes in that capacity. The Vedics don't. The Vedics speak to the dragon's head as being something that looks like karmic future, and the tail looking like something of karmic past. Again, this is all conjecture, and with Mercury in Leo, it's very important for me just to throw out some ideas and to talk about some things without being a complete expert, but with also without ruling it out as something not worth looking at. I've been changed very recently by an astrologer called Stephen Forrest. I have just been inundated, steeping myself, eating it up. This incredible mind, this incredible poet, this incredible artist that works as an astrologer. And he has the most beautiful way of describing everything that you possibly want to know. And there's no stopping the insight that comes from the poetry of this person's words. And I've just loved it so much, and I've just been so moved by it. And it's really held me through some very desolate, unmagical moments in my life when faith felt like it was slipping away. The evolutionary astrology idea has really lit something, and it's just a theory, and it's also not anything that I'm an expert or feel qualified to share or teach or use as a modality just yet. But I'm also not a purist. I'm also just a magician. So for funsies, let's work with the nodes. Let's work with this eclipse season and think about things that we are being moved, prodded towards to come to learn and come to educate our soul in this lifetime, and think about the dragon's tail or the South Lunar Node as an example of experiences from lifetimes gone by. How's that? Pluto is another planet that's incredibly important to the teachings of evolutionary astrology, and Pluto is the planet that got me on this rampage in the first place. When I had a Pluto transit over my sun way back when in 2020, my life changed, and my astrology was compelling me to learn it. This work just flew into my very Venus system as Pluto did its powerful work of excavation and revelation and decimation in terms of my identity. So my astrology seems to be going through a similar mode right now. My access to magic seems to only work when I'm engaged and when the mystery and the poetry is speaking to me. So rather than a compulsion, rather than being terrified of the possibility of eclipse season, I'll say it again, half of my face was paralyzed last eclipse season, but that is not any emblem of what will happen, what's going to happen again. Where is the rhyme or reason in me getting paralyzed on half of my face? And it's still not back completely. I'm still having to do my exercises and light myself in the most flattering way. But what is the lesson from that moment? Things have got to make sense in the examination of it. Mercury wants us to examine. Virgo compels us to examine. So I think of this new moon in Virgo, which is happening on the date is the... forgive me. I've got so much stuff scribbled here in my book that I can't even remember. Use your words, Kim. Where is it? The 23rd of August. So that's a Saturday, and it's happening at 4:06 p.m. if you need the details, which it's Virgo season. Let's get the details exact. So Saturday, the 23rd of August, at 0 degrees of Virgo, there will be a new moon far enough away from the dragon's tail so as not to be eclipsed, so as to be used as an evening of magical intention and of spell work and asking and believing and hoping and calling in. We can look at the individual houses for you in a moment as we go through with the tarot as well. But then we're going to shift our focus and we're going to speak about the possibility that Rahu, Ketu, this dragon, that has been swimming around our consciousness for all of our lives, that moves slowly, slowly, slowly around the zodiac backwards compared to everything else, eats things, chases things, ingests them, follows, sniffs things out. Some of us are terrified of dragons. A lot of us are taught to slay the dragon, to conquer the dragon. Some of us get on the back of the dragon and we ride it. So I wonder who is who. And I wonder if that might show itself during this month, this next month. So on the 11th of August, Mercury, no, forgive me, the 11th of August is the new moon. Oh, I'm so sorry. Mercury will station direct on the 11th of August. Sorry, I've got all, you know what? It's the Virgo. It's sticking in my craw. It's getting in my way. Shush. Let's switch our focus to the Pisces lunar eclipse. I'm going to look at these notes. That is happening on the 8th of September. So by that point, Saturn will have moved back into Pisces. So as much as I was saying that there was a co-presence of Saturn at the last eclipses, there were, and the lunation was conjunct Saturn. Saturn's just resting at 29 degrees of Pisces. And so this is its last sort of journey for us with that feeling. For the next 30 years, we won't experience Saturn in Pisces again. So we've got to really think about the last 3 years of our lives and what we have learned as far as containership and as far as a lesson plan in terms of our magical selves. And I say that because Pisces is the one that wants to believe and wants to be connected to every fiber, every cell in the universe, knows that we are all connected, that wants to create a sort of web and shoot magical love and connection down each of those strands. Pisces can also really get wigged out when things aren't cohesive and when conflict is rife and will often try and swim away and disappear. Saturn, I think, over the last 3 years has been really teaching the Pisces parts of ourselves not to slip away, not to run away, in fact, to stand and face what we need to face. The idea of dissociation can come and go and come and go. And Saturn in Pisces has been holding us in place. The Saturn had moved into Aries this year, but by the 1st of September, Saturn has, in their retrograde motion, moved back to that final degree of Pisces. Neptune's on the way, but this is what's going on. So skip to the 8th of September, and this is the full lunar eclipse in Pisces. Now, this one, let me just look at my notes over here. This one is happening at 4:12 a.m. in the morning on the 8th of September at 15 degrees of Pisces. There you go. There's all the detail. So this is the direction that the dragon is facing. This is the way that we are headed. This is what we are being urged to discover, to look at. Now, I'd like to think that this dragon, hypothetically, in the evolutionary possibility of what the dragon may mean, is locked and loaded onto all of our Piscean attributes, all of our empathy, our compassion, our love, our magic, our possibility, our youthful naivety, our ability to make shit up, our imagination, our magician. It's all being focused there. Now, I've got 2 cards on the deck here, on the table here, that I've been looking at too, just to speak about the split between Virgo and Pisces, because it can get confusing, and often in opposition, we find that there can be a rope, a link between those 2 signs of help for one to the other. So while in one of the systems of the tarot, Pisces can be represented by the moon card in all of its unknowable, intimate possibility. in the animal nature of our being invited to come out to the surface under the cover of night, being in company with the energy of the moon and feeling it change our bodies, change our psyches. That's what Pisces wants. That's what Pisces knows is a part of us. That's what's unexplainable. There's no rationale to this card or to Pisces oftentimes. In opposition to the moon, we have the Hermit in Virgo. Now the Hermit is separate, as Pisces is steeped in everyone. Virgo is pretty solitary, like the Hermit. Virgo has taken themselves away, shut themselves in, gotten out their books, and is ready to study and has learned everything that they possibly could about the given subject, has gone through every variable, every detail, has looked at all angles, and with their hands they have been doing tests, with their feet in the mud. Both of these cards speak to a belief in magic. The Hermit is just the one who is making the recipe. So for the next month, we're working in this quiet, private, magical realm. And if we believe it, and if we open our hearts up to the definition of eclipse season being something not to shy away from, being something absolutely unstable, absolutely unpredictable, but with the intention of learning from it. With that definition, I think back to all of the eclipses that I've been doing this work, all of the different journeys that we've taken with the dragon over the years, all of the different heartbreak that eclipses seem to somehow herald in some way, some shape or form. But if we can expand our knowledge and try and understand it, try and get to the bottom of the meaning or the reasoning for it. Think about our journey in this lifetime as part of a greater whole, and experience ourselves with further compassion for some of our impulses, rather than saying to yourself, why do I always do that? It's not, I don't understand why I'm so wired that way. It's just, there's always been something about me that is this certain way, and I can't shake it. I can't understand where it came from either. Rather than that kind of frustration, or when you think about something that you just can't get enough of, when life becomes compulsive and you search and you search and you want and things just get ripped out of your hands, and it feels really unfair, rather than it being chaos. There's something about fate that we can start to talk about with the dragon in the evolutionary astrology definition of the nodes. And as I said, I'm no expert, I'm no hermit. I've been reading a lot and I've been listening a lot, but I ain't one to give you the 411 as if I friggin' know what I'm talking about just yet. I do have a very big feeling in my body that my education is going to shift, and that my interest has been piqued like it hasn't been piqued in many years. I've been thinking so much about all of the different systems and education streams, all of the different literature and initiations that this sort of magical work has to offer. All of the different ancient wisdom schools, all of the different pathways, all of the different sort of formalized structures of this thing. And part of me has been so hungry to master and to understand and to lock it in and to get going. Another part of me has just been crying out for the creation aspect, for the magical aspect, for the poetic aspect. There's room to move when we open up our hearts and our ears to possibility. And I think in some way, by thinking that the dragon is facing Pisces and the tail is in Virgo, we're all in one way, shape or form being instructed at this time to wiggle off that old skin of finicky perfectionism and to face something that looks incredibly difficult to describe, but incredibly seductive and incredibly beautiful and incredibly magical. If we wanted to think about the formalized structure of the tarot and what Mercury, or how Mercury is represented in the tarot, it's the Magician card. And I have my Magician up on my altar at the moment for secret reasons. But if we're knowing that Mercury is in really good condition during these eclipses, we know that as much as the ground starts to shake and the light goes out, and we think about our ancestors and think about, well, in the old days they were terrified at eclipse season, they thought that they were being cursed. If we think about Mercury guiding our way through Virgo season, we look to Mercury as if it were the sun during Virgo season. And in one way of reading the tarot, not all of them, one of them, it is the Magician. This is the Odyssean tarot, and this is Hermes as the Magician. Hermes is another name for Mercury, FYI. The messenger of the gods. The Magician, the messenger of the gods. Yeah. How does that feel? Does that feel weird? Does that feel different to the way that you're used to hearing me talk about astrology? If it is, like, good. Yeah. Yeah. One more thing I'll say before we go into our spell work. In another school of astrology, which is one that you may have heard me talk about before, it was actually one of the first ones that I became ravenous for, separate to the evolutionary school of thought and Stephen Forrest's wonderful work, contemporary, in the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s and 90s it was formed, is the esoteric school, or the esoteric philosophy on astrology. And that is incredibly dense and incredibly, you've got to really commit to that one. I was really committed to it when I first experienced it. With time, there's room for that school of thought to imbue and inform my other schools of thought too. But in that capacity, Virgo is not only ruled by Mercury on a different tier of rulership in the esoteric school, it is the moon that rules Mercury. So whichever way you slice it, from now until the end of September, we're working with the moon, the Pisces and Tarot card, and we're working with Mercury, the Magician. We've got a lot of support from both of those planetary bodies, all through a time that may feel like great upheaval, or may sound like great upheaval, may sound like a time to unplug and hide away. I don't think that it's the time to unplug and hide away. I think that it's the time to unplug, defo, but I believe it's the time to come together, and it could just be Mercury in Leo speaking right now, but I was waiting for Mercury to station direct. Boy oh boy, when it did, the words started to come again, and the words and the pride started to come again. So astrology works, fact. how it works is conjecture, and it's exciting to learn all the different ways and possibilities that it could. So, I'm going to put the Magician back on the altar. I'll leave links for all of the tarot decks that I used in the description below. I've got to remember to do that. I left the Stretch Tarot, I think, in the last one. But yes, I will leave links to these ones too. We'll put the Magician back up on the altar. And so they will be looking over us at this time. Speaking of magicians, you may have recognized it from the Moon and the Hermit, but I'm going to be working with the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. Now this is yet another system of tarot, similar to the Hermetic tradition, the Golden Dawn tradition, insofar as the links to astrology and the tarot. This one has been revolutionized and updated by one Aleister Crowley. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. The jury is out. Some adore, some do not. I'm looking forward to reading more. I've had this deck, it was given to me by a very, very good friend of mine. And what I'm really coming to understand about effective ways of transcribing and sharing these sorts of information is that if you want to please everybody with your work, you will please no one. And sometimes provocation creates a reaction, and that reaction is the point. So we shall see. We shall see what Aleister Crowley has to say. There's something in his history that had a lot to do with rejection that I have empathy for. And there's a lot of theatre that I adore, love, glamour spell. And I'm moving my brain away from striking things off the board forever. And yeah, I'm just not going to do that anymore. There'll be nothing left if I keep doing that. So they seem pretty nice and shuffled. I'm going to pull one card for each of the zodiac signs, and we'll move the zodiac around and talk about houses, perhaps, maybe in reference to your rising sign to get an accurate angle. But I think let's collectively just focus in on the dragon and where it's headed. So if you'd like to, again, close your eyes with me, and we're going to take in 3 big deep breaths. Together we're going to imagine the link that tethers Pisces to Virgo. If you can visualize Virgo as someone wearing a heavy woolen hooded cloak, and they have bare feet and mud up to their knees. They're standing firmly planted in the ground. They have a lantern in their right hand, and in their left hand they are holding a silver rope, and that rope is jutting out into the open sky. It almost feels like it's connected to the galaxy. Maybe if the Virgo character wasn't so steeped in the mud, they might take off. They're moving their left arm back and forth, and this silver rope, this tension, this tight rope, is moving with them. I wonder if it's some sort of leash. Is it connected to a collar? Is that collar on a dragon? What is the dragon looking for out there? What proof? We trust this Virgo character. We trust the hooded hermit. They know what they're doing. They're also not pulling on that rope to drag back whatever it is that's out there. They're allowing them to move around. Think of it like taking this dragon for a walk. Now it's too far away for us to see for sure, but I wonder if that dragon has found an ocean, not on this planet, but one further out, way beyond our point of vision. I wonder if that dragon is now swimming in that ocean in the galaxy. I wonder if that dragon has found the fish in Pisces and has joined their school and is just playing out there in the ocean, out there in the stars. We don't know for sure. We wonder if when the dragon returns to the hermit, he'll ask. But I think when we're drawing cards together, I'd like for you to imagine that rope, that leash, that silver cord that connects the hermit to the dragon. Think of the boundless possibility of our galaxy, beyond science, sight, reality, back to magic, back to myth, back to storytelling. And think about the hermit, think about Virgo, think about the grounded one, not as a wowser, but as someone who is making experiments, who is testing, who believes just as much as you do, but would like to get would like to write the hypothesis as to how on earth this is happening to him. The 12 cards, 12 zodiac signs, 12 leashes. I hope that worked for you. I hope that you're feeling open to the possibility. I hope that your rational mind feels safe with the Hermit, and I hope your magical mind feels safe with the galaxy. We'll start with Virgo. So knowing that the dragon's tail, the south lunar node, is in your sign. Deep past thinking. If you're a Virgo rising, this is your first house, the house of the self. So quite literally, perhaps different versions of you. The dragon's head is facing your seventh house, your relationships, the other person, where you find love and connection, the urgency to look in that place a little deeper, to journey with that dragon through that possibility of hope and love. What is tying you to them at this time? Something really, really, really fertile. Someone really generous and giving and established. I can almost see, this is the Queen of Pentacles, by the way. I can almost see this as the version of you that feels cool enough and comfortable enough and soft enough to not really mind that you don't know everything, that things aren't quite making sense. If you think about the relationships in your life right now, Virgo, and think about the ones that feel like they are connected from another life. You've known each other before. Think about the urgency of you looking for those personalities. Think about the coincidences that have been showing up for you this year. And think about all of the different parts of yourself that you've had to put away or stop from getting in the way. This version of you has all that they need and knows their steers, knows their craft really well, knows how to turn things over. They're also really comfortable and really relaxed with not knowing everything. So as we enter into eclipse season and as we see all of the revelations in your seventh house, the house of people that you love, stop yourself before you stop yourself. Feel that sort of bass note. Feel that anchor. Feel that kind of, yeah, cool, I know. I know this is trippy, but I'm open to it. I'm not going to let my rational brain get in the way of it. I hope for the next month that this story becomes really obvious to you. And I hope that things feel fated in your connections. And I hope that you can feel safe as the Queen of Pentacles, the Queen of Discs does, in the not knowing, in the ride. Let someone take you on a ride over the next month. Go with it. Know that you can come back to your base whenever you need to, but see what's out there. This one is for Libra. We're going to have a little chat about bravery, I think, Libra. We're going to think about the physical safety that has been questioned in your dream state. We're going to think about the worry sometimes that you have when going to sleep, and sometimes when you wake up and you sort of catch yourself. There's techniques that you can learn around safe sleep. I'm not sure if you know much about sleep paralysis. Oh gosh, it's something that doesn't happen very often for me, but when it does, there's a real terror, I get quite frightened about going back to sleep. I think that you are going to feel really supported from here on in around that topic. I think that sleep is going to be something that you're going to look to enjoy, and I think there's going to be certain doorways in your dreams that you were not opening for reasons unknown that you're going to open. I think that what you've been learning about bravery with Mars in your sign, I think what you've been learning about the importance of keeping standing up for yourself and of being brave is going to aid in this journey with the dragon. I imagine that the mundanity of life is going to really find its synchronicity as well. I think that there's going to be things in your waking day that really remind you of your sleeping hour. And I think that perhaps some of the fear around those dreams, if they're recurring, or around the physical act of sleeping, or not, waking up feeling exhausted, I really think that that's going to ease up for you, and the synchronicity of the day you're going to be awake to, and that's going to inform your confidence when it comes to reintegrating into a healthy sleep pattern. The last time that I had sleep paralysis, I had the most heartbreaking experience, because the thing that I was terrified of at the very end of my bed, when I finally had the physical capability of sitting up, lurching up and looking, it was a child crying, and they were terrified of me. And in that moment I woke up. The instantaneous change of my perception taught me so much about what it is that I'm afraid of, and where it is that's come from, and what timeline did I step into, and was this a version of myself that I was frightening with my current state. The magic that you had back then is going to become really available to you now. So during eclipse season, I want you to perhaps start enacting some more intentional rhythms around your sleep. Perhaps if it's been something that you've not been looking forward to, then clearing out the physical space with whatever means makes sense to you, whatever smells, actions, prayers, and then make friends with the shadows of the dreams, and then see the synchronicity of the day, and then link them together. And that's going to provide you with a lot of peace, I imagine. And it looks quite lovely. Think about that bravery. Think about what Mars has been teaching you about standing up for yourself. And I wonder if you can bring some of that into your unconscious phases too. Scorpio. Scorpio, before we go anywhere, before we look at the card, that conjunction between Vesta and Juno has become exact. So I was looking at the chart for this first Virgo new moon, and there it is, 20 degrees in Scorpio. So thinking about what we were speaking of in terms of finding the courage to harness that sort of sacred inner work, and thinking about recommitting to something that looks and feels like magic is happening right in time for this new moon and right in time for eclipse season. So I wonder where the dragon is facing and urging you towards at this time. I'm going to get your link card. You got the High Priestess. The most magical out of all of the cards in the tarot. Even more magical than the Magician, although don't tell him that, he'd be very upset. The High Priestess sits inside of each and every single one of us, and she holds the knowledge, she holds the answer to every single question that any of us could possibly ever want to know. The moon sits at her feet. The secrets, the mysteries sit in her lap. Behind the gossamer fabric of her temple lays the unknowable vastness of the ocean. But that's a vastness that she is an expert in understanding. Her rhythm with spirit, with her magic, is eternal. So I think that that's a really beautiful card for you to meditate with, perhaps over eclipse season. This might be one that you might take out from your deck and put on your altar as we journey with the dragon, as we feel all of these different magical possibilities revealing themselves to us. Now, there's something here that I'd like to talk about, sort of group shame as well, because the dragon is encouraging you to release some of your self-consciousness in a collective around your magical self-expression. So I'm really glad that Vesta and Juno have made their conjunction in your first house. I'm really glad that you're recommitting to your magic, that the High Priestess is here to encourage you, and the dragon is urging you into your house of self-expression, into your house of creativity and play. This is the time, this is the season for you to really go deep with your reading practice, with your astrological knowledge, with your paintbrushes, with your body, with your sexuality, if that's something that inspires you. Perhaps there's revelations here, there's points of connection that are becoming so obvious to you. Parts of yourself are awakening that you never thought possible, that you never really believed you could utter in polite company. Well, the dragon's tail is flicking away that polite company. The inhibitions in social groups, social networks, the way that you're expected to behave can get really old. And the funny thing is, when you let yourself free, you really do realize just how little other folks are concerned with keeping you boxed. You'll actually hopefully find that if you can reveal the truer parts of your nature and your truer self, that folks around you are either highly disinterested or incredibly encouraging. Either way, this story of what will the community think is something that just doesn't fit in this part of the year, in this part of your development, your awakening. So get in touch with your sexual self, get in touch with your magical self, get in touch with the possibility of what these magical parts of your life can bring in for you. And who gives a shit about what other people think? There's no time for that, babe. The High Priestess says so. Sagittarius. Now we're on a pivotal axis point here, Sagittarius. So further to this imagery of releasing, of shedding, of remembering what has occurred for you before. All of the ways that you imagine yourself being perceived, and all of the ways or experiences that you've had of your public-facing self being sort of stripped down or peeled back to reveal something else, or perhaps to even dismantle in order to build again, might be, these themes in your life might be showing up even more as we enter into eclipse season. The urgency that you might be feeling now to pad the cell, as it were, and create safe space, healthy relationships, even calming energy at home, is another part of this story. I'm going to get you the card and we'll see how we can connect these two very disparate parts of your life, and then I'm going to tell you a little story. It's important for you right now, Sagittarius, to lean on somebody who has a very, they're very adept at critical thinking. And what I'm kind of seeing here is also something that feels like a public dressing down that I'm looking to work through with you. I think publicly we can get, if we're a public person, if we have, let me start that again. Some of us have become accustomed to living a very public life. There are people in our orbit that do a lot of outward projecting, and there's a lot of them, their spirit, their energy that is being consumed in the public forum. And at present, the public forum feels like an incredibly volatile place, and for many different reasons, and those reasons are complex. One of the reasons is folks, the consciousness becoming addicted to the dopamine hit of dressing down, of retaliating or public shaming somebody. The idea of holding a counter argument has become quite addictive, and it's really affecting a lot of people. And so there are some folks that live a public life that have been in real contention with that they feel that they've been piled on in some capacity in the public arena. They're being judged by someone cold and harsh, and sort of the intellectual disparity is obvious. The other part of this story, which is also incredibly true, is that there seems to be, across the board, collectively, an exhaustion when it comes to the visibility of public-facing people. The cult of celebrity, as it were, seems to be having its reckoning. The public discourse seems to be getting out the stocks for all and sundry. And I'm not totally against all of that, because I think that there's something in the aspirational element of public-facing people, the cult of celebrity, that is incredibly damaging to the psyche of the collective consciousness. Now, you might not be a public-facing person, and you're sort of sitting there thinking, what? What I would like to add to this reading is that the Queen of Swords can be found in both of your, on both sides of that polarity, publicly and privately. I think the time is now, and the season might be now, seeing as how we're working with Mercury, we're working with our intellect and our communication styles. I think that it might be really important for you, Sagittarius, is to put a pin in the public arena, the way that you're paranoid about being publicly perceived or saying the wrong thing, or being retaliated against in the public sphere, that's less important. The dragon's instructing us that that's less important than what is playing out behind the scenes in your life. What urgency are you feeling that's aimed at the magic of your privacy and the magic of that world? What you do behind closed doors, what you do to soothe, what conversations you're having with other people in that world. Because language right now is sharp, and language right now seems to be related to as only a weapon on multiple facets of this spectrum. And the exhaustion that folks are feeling collectively in regard to the cult of celebrity, in regard to the peril of the influencer too, is real. So perhaps not everything that you think needs to be said publicly at this time, and maybe compulsively there's something about a journey that you had before that was very public, and now you're being reminded of the importance of a private, safe space to land. And perhaps this truth is hitting pretty hard on either side of the spectrum, whether it was a public shape dressing down, or in private someone has been really direct with you and is calling you your energy back in. That's up to you to meditate on. But I think eclipse season is going to be really good for you to develop your relationship to your private world and to your home life, separate to what's going on in the public domain. Give yourself a month and see how you feel after. Capricorn. Let me look at your bridge. I'm just collecting my thoughts as to how this is going to go, Capricorn. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you'll follow me. So you received the 10 of Swords for your tarot card, which feels like an incredibly sharp and severe bridge. When I imagined that silver cord that we were imagining together, that connects the hermit to the dragon up in the ocean, all of a sudden that turned really sharp and dangerous in my mind's eye. What I'm looking at in the stars for you, Capricorn, are memories from a time past where your faith, where your spirituality, where those topics, that language was used as a weapon towards you and was used to subjugate you or to confine you or to strip you down. And what I can see is someone after that dressing down, after that violence, that religious trauma, I can see someone incredibly vulnerable and incredibly scared and hurt. And then I can also see scab forming over that vulnerability, and I can see a hardening occurring too. And in true Capricorn fashion, I can see a realist. I respect that. I'm a Capricorn sun. I know I can speak that language. What it feels to me is a real disappointment. But what it also looks like to me is something that we can loosen our grip on. I can see in this configuration somebody who is really holding out for hope, but someone who is not incredibly interested in the academia, in the initiation rituals, in the formalized pathways to education, or indeed the jargon. I can see someone that gets really kind of bored when things get too technical, or gets really suspicious when things feel too familiar in terms of group think, in terms of spiritual stacks on. So what I'd like for you to remember is that in that world for you, you have the hermit. So you can embody that essence of somebody who is quite solitary in their education, someone who is a believer but is a skeptic in equal measure. What I can see coming towards you as well, Virgo, is the words. You'll find that you're probably more articulate than you give yourself credit for. I just said Virgo, I meant Capricorn. You know what I mean. Those little details. And also, who's this trickster magician? Don't trust him. Watch out. Watch out. The dragon wants you to find the magic in your little rituals, Capricorn. They want you to find the magic in your village, wherever you're living, whatever streets you're walking down, but also in the ways that you enact private ritual by yourself in your own rhythm. That's got nothing to do with a book, nothing to do with a tome, a treatise, a strict set of rules that you have to follow and get right, or else you're not doing it right. Nothing like that. The most magical people that I know do it in their every movement, consciously, unconsciously, or otherwise. They do it with such a flow and such a belief that I find so inspiring. And it's the little things in our day, the way that we stir our coffee in the morning, the way that we wake up, the way that we write down what we dreamt about, that all make the difference. There's something humbling about your magical journey, or there's something humble about your magical journey that I want you to take with both hands for what it is. It's not so huge, it's not so vast and unreachable. It's also not a space where you need to worry about being taken advantage of, because your time alone with your candles, your time alone with the moon itself, your time alone with your journal is all incredibly private and just as magical and just as spiritual as any of that other stuff you were being told was. And so release some of these old stories around the unsafety of a spiritual practice, or the unsafety of magical work. Release those thoughts, those feelings. Come to understand where perhaps they may have come from too. And focus in during eclipse season onto your private world, onto the way that you create magic in your daily rhythm by yourself with your girlfriends. And hopefully in that reclamation, some of these pain points, some of these sharp memories will ease themselves out of your consciousness, and you can finally put them to rest. Know that the sun is coming up again, and there'll be another day. Go to it, Capricorn. I believe in you. Aquarius. What magical link do we have for you? Okay. So your bridge is the Three of Cups. So that feels to me like a triplicity, power in numbers, and the beauty and bounty of sharing, of coming together with your people, as it were, the power of three, and the profundity of emotional exchange with your girls. And so if we look at the dragon and we see where we're going and what we're letting go, what I'm looking at is a pretty powerful mission that in some way might feel pretty solitary, and it might feel pretty selfish at times. There may have been moments in your relationship with your intuition that you've thought to yourself, oh gosh, am I just being incredibly selfish? This is just serving me, and I'm not so sure that my politics or my conscience can deal with that. All of these signposts have been leading to me to this direction, and I'll be honest with you, that's not really me. What the tarot that we pulled for you to help you in this moment is telling us about is the importance of your sisterhood, proverbial. And I think that if you were to ask that sisterhood, those groups of people, if you were to share some of these paranoias perhaps around, acting out selfishly, or if your desires right now, if this sort of urgency that you're feeling is selfish, to quell that will simply take a conversation with folks that love you, that really care about you, that want the best for you. I think that this month during eclipse season, this is the time. I mean, it's always the time to surround yourself with people that have your best interests at heart. But what I'm saying is that I think at this moment there might be some things that feel fated, that arrive that include this soul family of yours, and all of them encouraging you, guiding you to this part of your life, this track that you're going to take, that really does benefit your growth and your happiness, and is in line with your values too. I think that a lot of those old stories around propriety or obligation are really coming to such powerful resolution. Perhaps different relationship structures, or different family dynamics, or different obligations that you've felt in this life, or a sense of obligation that perhaps feels like it's coming from somewhere else. This is all being removed from your shoulders, and soon you're going to find the words to speak that confidence into action. If it's something that you need to tell certain individuals to sit down and leave room for you and your desires, your development, then that may happen too. You may feel that you're getting the confidence to muster some of that. All I've got to say is if you're not a conflict person, that's completely fine, and you're not being asked to come at loggerheads with somebody else. But what I will say is that the company of folks that have your best interests at heart, that see your talents and want you to grow and to shine and just love you and want nothing but the best for you, want happiness for you, they're the ones that are going to come in to bat for you at this time. And massage your shoulders as you're looking at this area of your life that you're thinking, wow, a wing and a prayer, I don't even know I can do it. I know I can do it. I'm being urged to discover that I can do it. I'm being urged to discover this is in my control. My autonomy, my ability to determine my own destiny is in my power, and I am not behest or beholden to anybody else's story, because this is my life. Past lives or not, this life I'm writing for myself. And I set down some of these obligations. I set a barrier around myself in terms of what's expected of me from my past, and I follow my value system with strength and might, and I get by with a little help from my friends. Congratulations, babe. Pisces, Pisces, Pisces. Now, if you have been feeling selfish lately, if you've been feeling a bit embarrassed about how self-focused you have become over this year, the dragon is encouraging you to shed some of that guilt and to recognize that it's the time of the season for you to go inward in order to heal, and then you can come outward once more. But you've been through a bit of, you've been through hell, let's be honest, Pisces rising. You've been up against it. You've been contained and then cast out. You've been stripped of your faculty, and also there have been many relationship styles and relationship dynamics that have just passed you by or have fallen away. But what I would really like to remind you is that this has also been something of a perception as well. And in fact, the way that you used to relate to people and engage in relationships and build trust and build hopes and dreams with others, it's the perception of those coulda, shoulda, wouldas, or the perceptions of those obligations that have really been changing. You can be in healthy relationships, and you can also be invested in yourself and your understanding of self too. There are times in life when you need to focus inward because of what you're tending with in life. That all you can do is come to understand yourself. And once you understand yourself, you can therefore present that version of yourself with that understanding and that knowing to your relationships and to the other people in your life. If it's been feeling really scary and you've been feeling that you're, losing more and more, and soon that there'll be nothing left, I would highly encourage you to get specific, though, with the relationships that do exist in your life, and get specific with those relationships and which ones are the ones that you are able to be your truest, honest self with. Think about the relationships that do exist in your life where you can be as you are, when you can go through your own process without the worry of disappointing somebody else. Because it's those relationships that are the ones that are privately in the background growing roots. You may have felt like a winter in some way, a deadening of the world around you. But it's coming for, it's shedding for a reason. Let's get your card and see what it says. You got the 9 of Swords, my darling. And so I'm going to put it to you really plainly. Paranoia is a very real thing. And paranoia can have its effect over our physical self. A very busy mind can indeed then react or show up in the physical manifestation. There's an internal suffering here around relating to other people. There's an internal suffering here, memories from times long ago, memories from who knows when, that are plaguing you or have been plaguing you. There are things that have been left unsaid, and there are memories that don't have closure. There are also dynamics and realities in your life that have enjoyed closure. There are also dynamics and relationships and love in your life that is beautiful and is open to you and is receptive and is reciprocal. You're not a bad person, Pisces. It's impossible. Things sometimes run their course. Things sometimes end. There are things that we don't get to say. There are things that we don't get to take back. And there are things that we don't get to shove in their face and make them look at. Your sensitivity is enormous. It's as big as the ocean, Pisces. And right now, especially during these eclipses, is the time to respect that and to journey deeper into that depth. Everything, the words, the articulation, it will come to you in time. And in your lived existence, in your current reality, if there are things that you need to say, or there are conversations that you need to have, that time will come. And perhaps with Mercury's co-presence in Virgo as well, you'll indeed find the words once you have some semblance of confidence back. But right now, let the druthers druther. Right now, focus in on what is occurring for you internally. What scores are you settling through the might of your will and also your commitment to doing the work? Gosh, that's one of the most frustrating phrases I think I've ever heard. Do the work. We're all doing the work. Or are we though? Some of us aren't doing the work. Some of us have confused what the work is and think that they're doing the work. All the while they're just perpetuating the same patterns that keep them in bondage. But you're not. And it's hard. So right now, respect yourself for what you have achieved so far, as difficult as it feels sometimes. Come to understand that sometimes our unconscious dynamics infiltrate into our habits and behaviors. And sometimes the paranoia or the worry about relating to others steps in the way of us engaging in relationships, because we think in some perverse way that they are much better off, that I'm much better off, and that bridge is just too sharp and too desolate for me to even touch. But it's our job to recognize that as an impulse, and then also to reteach ourselves that that is simply untrue. The Nine of Swords can be such an incredibly cruel card. We wake up from that though. We wake up from that in this life. Some of us have to wake up from that a couple of times before we get it. Some of us, it's in perpetuity. That's doing the work. That's showing up in your life time and time and time again. That's working with and through the paranoia into something that honors you and your wants and needs and your happiness. So let the dragon. And if anyone calls you selfish, they've not heard from you in a while, you heard it from me first, babe, they can F off. You've got big fish to fry right now, Pisces. Be careful you don't fry yourself in the process. Forgive me, Aries, the camera just stopped recording. Where was I? I'd like for you to think back to March of this year, and if you can imagine some of the ways that the mundanity of your life seemed to make less and less sense to you. Think about the different ways in March that there was something of an inner hunger, and think about the different strategies that you instilled in your life, or even just some of the things in your day-to-day routine that just stopped being so important to you. Think about the ways that your life was structured then, and think about the ways that your dreams were beckoning you. If you can imagine this eclipse axis as something drawing you back deeper and deeper to time gone by. Think about your philosophy around past lives, if that's something that you even believe in. It might not be. It might be something that you've become more interested in as time has gone on, and there may have been clues in the way that you lived out a day that felt familiar, but also felt like you came to some sort of realization in yourself of like, oh, I actually don't do this. I don't need to do this. I'm living my life perhaps by the rule book of someone else, someone that isn't me. And maybe there was a period of soul searching that you engaged in that, consciously or not, and I dare say probably a little bit unconsciously, started to unpeel some of the layers of you. And there were moments of insight that hopefully you could hold on to. There's something really private about this time that I enjoy for you, Aries. There's something really kind of vast and psychedelic, and it almost feels like a movie with no dialogue. I was reading somewhere recently that I think it was Jodorowsky said that modern film has too many links to the theatre. It's too language-based, and there's something so ripe with potential about the medium if we were to subtract the language. And that notion just in of itself, I can see that in the birth chart and the dragon's axis right now, stripping away language to reveal even more, to connect with folks separate to language, spoken language, and more in touch and in rhythm with their unconscious. Now that all seems pretty abstract and bizarre, but if you've been feeling a little bit existential, this might go to explain some of those promptings. And rather than be frightened of that, because existentialism can be pretty solitary, when nothing means anything anymore, it can be quite frightening. But if things in their structure or their compartment, the way that things have always been, the way that things that you've always done, things that you always leaned on, or habits that you always had, or even routines that you were bound by, maybe through that portal of these just making less and less sense to you, a gateway has opened into a further route of connection that relies less on sort of speech and rhythm and more on vibes. Think back to March, and if there's a link there, if there's a moment there, if there's a period of your life there that maybe not at the psychedelic part yet, but definitely I'm just uncomfortable in my own skin. I'm uncomfortable in this rhythm, this repetition. This doesn't feel like me anymore. In fact, I don't think that it ever felt like me. Then we're on to something, and the psychedelic bit can come with this eclipse cycle because we're experiencing an eclipse in Pisces this time around. So maybe we can find a link with the tarot between the mundanity of the day-to-day, the uncomfortableness that you have with that, and what lies further in. So in Crowley's version of tarot, this is the adjustment card. And this speaks about lots of the go-to definitions. You can see that there's something being weighed up here in this card. There's a scale, there's a balance. In the tarot that we're all used to, the Justice card is emblematic in similar ways to this adjustment card here. But this is number 8. There's a changeover in the systems. In fact, Jodorowsky also said that Arthur Waite changed the original system of the tarot, the older version, the playing card version of the tarot, to suit his astrological leanings. And I think that there's something in that just alone that we can talk about. So I'll set this card down for a moment and we'll work our way back into the rigidity of structure, organized systems, of routine, of rule books and instruction manuals. In your life right now, the urgency to burn the instruction manual, the order of things, the way that things feel like they're containing you. By looking at this version of the tarot, referencing that book, then thinking about that idea, working with the possibility of an alternative astrology too, I found it really liberating to learn this world, this one way of looking at things, and then see the light coming through the chinks in the walls. Too much of anything repetitive can sometimes feel like a boa constrictor. Not everything. Some people really enjoy the boundary of rules. All this looks like to me, Aries, is that you're finding your own way through now, and that there is parts of your understanding of what life means that you're inventing or exploring for yourself that are separate to this book, that book, this tarot card. Oh, but that's the number 8, that should be the strength card. There's all of these different roads lead to the same place as far as the majority of us are concerned when wanting to engage or interact with any faith-based system or any system. There's always room to find your own way. There's always room to find understanding in the absurd. Now, the purists in the room will be like, haha, no, I smell a rat. But no, there is this. This means that. Red means fire. Green means earth. Absolutely, these are certain systems. There are also different ways for you to get what you need out of your spiritual life in your unconscious reality. Your dreams are probably really vivid right now, and there's no one that needs any justification for what happens in your dream life. The clues in your dreams are yours to decipher, And it feels like that link that we were trying to find between the unconscious world and the mundanity of real life feels like you can break all system to get there. Whichever way you get there is the point. I hope that makes sense. I'll play it back and see what gibberish I was speaking and have a laugh. Don't let anybody tell you you're doing it wrong, Aries, because you're not. You're invested and you're going to figure it out. Your way is the right way for you. Well, 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 Taurus, let's see what we have here. I'm going to get you that bridge. So you got the Prince of Swords, which is a beautiful name. I love it in this system, in the Thoth system. It's princes and princesses, which I think is really cool. But what I can see in the astrology and what we can probably work on further exploring is this yearning for a sense of belonging and this yearning to find your people. You know, I've got that kind of image of Lana Del Rey in the Ride music video playing in my mind, you know, I just longing to find my people. And I found them on the open road, you know, that kind of thing. There's a sort of solo wandering feeling about you that is sort of running its course, I think, Taurus. And I think that there's beautiful, magical pockets of belonging that we were speaking about before, you know, that feeling of like meeting someone and knowing them from another time, or waiting or hoping for a circumstance in collective company where you can be your truest magical self, where you can use the language that you've been learning, where you can exchange ideas. I'd like for you to imagine your workshop proverbial, however that works for you, but where you've been toiling in sort of solo enterprise, perhaps you've been doing a bit of that sort of hermit vibe in some sort of workable creative studio, and it's been working really well for you. You've been discovering things about your craft, yourself, your ideas. There's been sort of an itch to kind of get out of that studio and get into some kind of public arena where you're able to share that with other people. I'd like for you to open your eyes up to the coincidences, the fate, the symmetry of connection over the next period, you know, over eclipse season. I'd like for you to think about all of the different people that are arriving in your life, that you feel like are a breath of fresh air, that you're like, oh gosh, just I listened to you and I understand this thing that I can never really understand, or look what I've been working on behind the scenes, look what I've been sort of toiling away at. This is just something that I sort of keep to myself. It chills me out. You know, I have fun this way. But then register how these people that you're meeting, how these groups are responding to that, and how they are reveling in that, and how what you have toiled away at, the mysteries that you've been trying to learn or understand in your privacy in that studio, have given them answers, provided them with clarity. Over, and it's probably about, you know, it's a month or so we're working with, probably all of Virgo season, we'll put it that way, because there's that triplicity of those lunations. The seed that you're sort of growing, that we can mark with this new moon, is then going to have such incredible growth, a growth spurt in a wider arena. And what I want you to do is sort of trust it. We'll get back to your tarot card. So you've got that Prince of Swords. Now, the understanding of sort of hierarchy or rank in the court cards can have us kind of recoil sometimes when we think about monarchy. Because monarchy seems like a very outdated sort of structure in its contemporary definition. Rank, monarchy, separation, all of that sort of stuff. You can feel the current culture, the collective, as it were, actively resisting and actively finding language to resist against these things. What I really would ask of you is to not worry so much about your level of expertise informing the efficacy of your work, because it seems, even by fluke, I wouldn't say by fluke, I'd say by blood, sweat and tears, what you have created is really hitting the mark, and it's really clarifying in that beautiful swords element of air way. It's really hitting other people in their intellectual sweet spot. They get it, they understand it, rather than sort of digging it. They really understand what you're saying. And so that's what you're looking out for during eclipse season, is these sort of fated moments where you're having conversations, and don't hunt for them too much, sort of let it flow. What you've been working on in privacy deserves its sort of, grace and exclusivity in a way. You don't have to shill this thing. You're not selling nothing. What you're doing is hearing and accepting the praise of the group, because unconsciously or not, what you've created is really landing for people, and they're really enjoying it. And if there's one thing that we can take from the definition of eclipses being unstable and unknowable, then go with the flow. Go with the flow of this dragon. And from that private world where you were the hermit, there was also a bit of Prince of Swords energy happening in there. There's a clarity to this toil. There's a clarity to this method that you've come up with. So as it sort of starts to seep out into the world, that was the Moon card, not the Hermit card. My Thothif confusing me. That's the Hermit there. They're very beautiful, but you need to spend a lot of time with them to sort of see all the different layers. And your work deserves that same time and care. So when I was saying you'll register the authenticity of the response, you really will. I mean, people can look you in the eye and say, your work's really moved me. That's it. Not, oh, it's great, babe. You can tell the difference. Taurians always can. There you go. Oh, she's a messy one this time around. All right, Gemini. So let's look at the bridge. So you got the Knight of Cups as the bridge. So the bridge includes some emotional sincerity and some vulnerability. And let's look at your dragon story. Okay, so if your bridge includes, it's taking me a little while, my camera conked out in Aries, so I'm having to reharness my focus. I haven't looked at the cards, but I'm looking at them now. Your bridge from your private world, from the ways in which you have been tending to your healing, the ways that you've been tending to the healing of those in your company, those that you really care about. Those techniques that you've been finessing, and soon with the inclusion of the articulation of Mercury soon enough, those rhythms that you've been exploring, that time that you've been listening to yourself and your own pain, and also the pain of those that you care about, the pain of your family, that has finessed itself into something of an incredible offering that I imagine might be about to surge into public visibility. There's something about the crown of your birth chart, Gemini, that is where the urgency is found. And you can probably sense that already. You can probably think about your perception of collective suffering, or your perception of the split in the current discourse, the very audible and visible pain that humanity is going through at present. And you can also keep your mind open, and you're available to the complexity of emotion. Everything that you've been training yourself with at home is coming through into the public space. And so prepare yourself during Virgo season for a jolt of visibility, for lots of questions to be asked of you, and maybe not so much in far as a actual presentation, the definition of public speaking. It may not be so obvious as that, but what we are working with is the sort of gathering of skills in privacy, and the understanding of the pain points of your lineage, the pain points of what got you from here to there, and also the pain that you harbour from other places too, and how you've synthesized that understanding of inherited trauma, and you've also synthesized your own timeline as well. All of this is knowledge, and in that beautiful hermit way of seclusion, of introspection, to test and to study, this is all finding its moment to dissipate to where it's needed most. Now that might kind of spook you a little bit, but I would probably say, as someone with Gemini energy in your chart, you're happy to chat, happy to share what you know. And so let's get on the back of that dragon, and let's really find the connector points and find the flow in the rhythm in which you speak. You know your stuff back to front. You've been working in privacy to finesse this skill, and the Knight of Cups is your bridge. So you know, to get on the back of that horse, you need to galvanize your empathy and your compassion. That's something that you've been training in for some time. Maybe when you think about March of this year, you can think about the flood of opportunity in privacy to work on that nurturing skill. Maybe you found yourself in relationship with those that you love that were going through it, and you needed to batten down the hatches and soothe and pray and protect. Maybe you were doing that for yourself. Well, over the next month, if we trust the dragon, we're going to feel that urgency and that jolt into the public domain. There's going to be things that we're really looking to articulate, and probably with Mercury's presence in that private world, being your ruler too, you're like, no, I understand this. I'm good at this. I've been trained in this. I can work with this. So use eclipse season of 2025 as your courage to put the good word out there. It's big, babe. Cancer. Let's get your bridge, your silver cord, your connecting tissue. So you've got the 8 of Pentacles, or the 8 of Discs in this version of the tarot, which is lovely because in one way of reading the zodiac, the sun and the moon forming that seed in Virgo, the lunation that is not eclipsed on the very first day of the Virgo season, is triggering this card. It's triggering the image of a healthy root system and cultivation. It's reminding me of the beauty and size of a gigantic tree and the power that such a thing holds, and the way that the mind can reel at the time that it's taken for something to grow to such a size. So this is your bridge, Cancer. Think about climbing up that silver cord, but now imagine it as a silverbark gum, a huge, giant tree that's taken a long time to solidify its beauty and its reliability. And when we think about this journey of the dragon, when we think about where this karmic prompting may be urging us to at this time, and when also we think about what we're tending to or contending with from the past, we're looking directly into a place that has your knowledge put on full display. It has you and your mind and your intellect in full activation. There are things that you know about magical systems, separate to this, separate to this, separate to everything that I've spoken about, that you know work and you know have saved your soul in one lifetime or another. You want to know more, and that's natural. Every master wants to know more. Every master is a perpetual student. Any master that tells you otherwise, or is a self-professed master, is not what we're working with here. What we're working with here is this hunger for knowledge, this hunger to share what you know, to put it in the public arena, and to further invest in what your definition of magic is. Thinking about what is coming into better articulation for you, what you're finding the words for, has so much to do with folk magic. It has so much to do with the private ways that we go about a day and we tend to the world around us, that we plant and we harvest and we regenerate. We watch the regeneration of the natural world around us, and we can recognize that in our makeup too. We can recognize that in our essence, that ability to regenerate, the necessity of a healthy root structure in order for the branches to expand. Now, this has all been happening for you in just the rhythm, the way that you've been maintaining your day, the way that you've been maintaining your sanity. You know, you've been sweeping, you've been pruning, you've been dutifully caring for every living thing in your orbit. All of these things are magic. The definition of magic is broad and vast, and it includes us all. It includes our special something. And so, as humble as you might consider that at this time, Cancer, what I can see is the dragon urging you into greater climes. There are so many folks that could really benefit from what it is you know about this image, about patience, and about attention and cultivation. So during eclipse season, the fraud will arrive within you. That horrible voice that says, who do you think you are? What do you think you've got to offer? It's not very much. Don't even worry about it. Why try? That might be something that you're battling with. But really, if you think about Mercury being present, this ability to articulate in the privacy of your world, in the way that your day is structured, things that you have enacted to help you maintain. This is like much needed material. And so whatever time it's taken for you to get the publishing rights in order, or the pen out, proverbial, of course, and also whatever it is that you don't feel that you know enough about and you long to learn more about, I imagine without so much effort from you that these opportunities will start to open up. And I imagine that there are things that you're going to learn about yourself and your relationship to your own expertise and the way that you regard that. Revelations around that topic will come out too. What you give, what you offer is really coming into a much brighter light. So trust it and go with it. Chase the dragon. Leo, the bridge is you got the Four of Discs, the Four of Pentacles. You can see fire, earth, air, water, the elements all working in synergy and in rhythm with mastery. There's something beautifully alchemical about this card, and there's something really committed to the formality of the thing. So working with this in our mind's eye and looking at the structure of the astrology, what I can see here is a urgency from the dragon to journey deeper and deeper and deeper into a place that feels psychologically beneficial. There are topics that you are versed in, and that's from this life, that's coming from somewhere intuitively with you. When you are face to face with people in crisis of any capacity, when you are face to face with people that are really working with something of a signpost in life, you really are coming into your element here. In fact, this is where the magic that you hold is really coming into fruition. And perhaps it's taken you this experience in, life so far to get to this point of being able to work with that magic, and it's been something of a trial by fire. Perhaps experiences of profound grief have shown themselves to you in your current living reality, things that have been so ferocious and so mighty and so huge that there has been a worry of overwhelm, but through commitment and through yearning to find the light in all of its many colors, you've come to this realization that this is actually what you're very good at. The hard things in life seem to be something of a skill that you have. And so setting down some of the perfectionism around your financial prowess, and perhaps even setting down some of your sort of preconceived ideas around a structured career path, I think eclipse season is going to show you evidence of where you shine and what skills you have in connecting through the harder things in life. I imagine that your spiritual practice, your work with the elements, your skill that you have been finessing over time is going to prove itself to be really powerful for you. I think that if we're working with this idea of an unstable or unpredictable career path and thinking about the brain and how things take a little bit of time to reconfigure once an alternative pathway was set, this period, this eclipse season, I feel is going to be the jolt that you need to realize or recognize that we all have the right to follow multiple pathways in this lifetime, and that the structure of conventional career pathways don't suit everybody. And that isn't to say that it's a retention problem either. This isn't anything to say or to speak of around your ability to commit or to focus. It's natural to be a little unfocused through times of such challenge in the world. And I think we're dealing with a very specific new challenge that is affecting our generation in a way that perhaps previous generations didn't need to contend with, this consistent access to information and availability to one another. What I'd love for the dragon to show you is your ability to co-create with the spirit world, the magical world, with God, whatever language hits for you. But your focus and your commitment and all of that hermiting, all of that testing is coming into play now in a separate stream, perhaps to others, your peers, friends, family. But through this tension, the ability for you to emanate your glow is going to prove to everybody that you've taken the offer from what you've lived through, and what you're speaking of currently is the truth. And it's coming from a place of sincerity, and it's coming from a place of great want to help care for and rediscover the magic of others through real strife. Grief can be an incredible teacher, but it takes a while to absorb and integrate the lessons and the knowledge. And it's a back and forth too. So while you're journeying with that dragon, Leo, that silver cord, that leash that you have, is your practice the skills that you've been developing for your lifetime to maintain hope are coming into fruition now. So be proud of that fact. Well. That's all I have to say on that subject, everyone. Those are your tarot cards for eclipse season. Now, as I said before, I can't be trusted. I may be back with more intel during the eclipses, but I might not. What I'm really stoked with is the possibility of new pathways for us as a reader and as an audience. And it's up to me and it's my responsibility to learn as much as I can. And the Capricorn parts of myself are champing at the bit. What I'd love to engage in is conversation with you around your knowledge or understanding of the different course or teaching pathways of astrology. I'll say it again. Evolutionary astrology, from what I can deduce, has got nothing to do with evolutionary psychology and has got maybe less to do with pinpointing past incarnations than we'd think. Stephen Forrest tells a beautiful story about engaging in readings with people, and I'm paraphrasing, but he does say, through looking at the chart, I'm going to tell you a story about a past life of yours that is absolutely truthful, except the facts are all wrong. I'm making them up. It's less to do with being revealed, or it being revealed to you that, oh, I was Cleopatra in a past life. We all probably were in some way. That's less interesting. It's more to do with understanding our impulses in this life and understanding our go-tos and understanding our contradictions. Pluto and the dragon's head and the dragon's tail have been major players for me in my understanding of astrology. I'm coming to terms and coming to realize that I think the definitions for all of those things can be broadened. And by analysis of my own chart and my own past, I'm coming to greater understanding of my little quirks and annoyances with myself. And I'm coming into ease and comfort with the idea of developing strategies to further my process and to see what parts of life I'm really being beckoned towards. As far as Crowley and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the formalized structure of the tarot, I will read about that forever. I will only ever bring it into effect when I feel it necessary. But I will say that the magician can sometimes be an agitator, and the response of the agitation is the point sometimes. The loneliness that I feel for any existence in the Victorian era, the empathy I have for that constriction of life, and the commitment to poetry and art and expression is something I find really valuable. So I would never call myself an aficionado or a devotee, but I do take the references and I take the feeling where I can get it. That's all I have to say. Happy eclipse season. I hope you don't freak out. if you'd like a reading from me, my books will be back open, I think in September at this point. Yeah. So if you'd like to book a reading, you can do so via my website at umaruby.com. And if you're feeling generous and have capacity, you can tip me at PayPal. My handle is at umarubytarot. Make sure it's a friends and family donation, won't you? Because it's helping me out. And from the generosity of your kind heart, not for any... there's no reason for PayPal to receive a cut. We'll put it that way. Love and light to you. One more thing before I go. I'm understanding the broader definition of the term light. We're striving to find the light, to see the light. And I think that sometimes it can be confused for white light as being, or bright light, sunlight, being the only form of light that we get to work with in our spiritual practice or our magical practice. The loving and lighting seldom takes the pain away. Sometimes it's important to exist in the dark. Sometimes it's important to refocus the eyes in the dark. Sometimes it's important to feel the effect of all of the different colours of light. That's all. I hope a house doesn't fall on you.